You are listening to the Adult Sabbath School Lessons for the third quarter of 2022. This is lesson number 1 of the Adult Sabbath School Bible Study Guide, In the Crucible with Christ. This lesson is titled The Shepherd's Crucible and is ready for teaching on July 2. The author is Pastor Gavin Anthony, who was conference president in Iceland when he wrote this series of lessons. Today, your lesson is read by Dr. Percy Harrold. Thursday, June 30. A certain promise for the journey. Psalm 23 verse 6 reads, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." When we are in the valley or surrounded by enemies, it is sometimes tempting to believe that we have been left alone. It does not always feel as though God has been doing much. We reason that if he had been helping, we wouldn't be in this situation to begin with. But David obviously does not see it like this. In spite of his trials, what two things does David say in Psalm 23:6 that he is certain of? Let's read that. "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever." We'll compare that with Ephesians 1 verse 4, "Just as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love." And 2 Peter 1 verse 10, "Therefore, brethren, be even more diligent to make your call and election sure, for if you do these things you will never stumble." And Hebrews 11:13-15, "These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, were assured of them, embraced them, and confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth. For those who say such things declare plainly that they seek a homeland. And truly, if they had called to mind that country from which they had come out, they would have had opportunity to return." Some translations say that goodness and unfailing love, God's covenantal commitment, will follow me all the days of my life. However, the original verb is much stronger, and the text should read that goodness and unfailing love will pursue me all the days of my life. In fact, it's the same Hebrew verb used in such verses as Genesis 14, verse 14. "Now when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his 318 trained servants who were born in his own house, and went in pursuit as far as Dan." And Joshua chapter 10 verse 19, "And do not stay there yourselves, but pursue your enemies and attack their rear guard. Do not allow them to enter their cities, for the Lord your God has delivered them into your hand." And 1 Samuel 25 and verse 29. "Yet a man has risen to pursue you and seek your life, but the life of my Lord shall be bound in the bundle of the living with the Lord your God, and the lives of your enemies he will sling out as from the pocket of a sling." In these verses, the idea of pursuit is very clear. What picture do you get in your mind when you imagine goodness and unfailing love pursuing you? What do you think David meant to tell us about God by describing his care for us this way? No matter how deep the valley or how persistent the enemies, the certainty of God's goodness and unfailing love and the certainty of his guidance to the very end of our journey is unquestionable. If these thoughts could sustain Jesus through Calvary, we should take heart as well. There are times, however, when those we care for are full of questions. Like David, the best way to address these concerns is often not with a theological description of what God can do. Rather, as David shows us in Psalm 23 verse 6, when he says, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever," it is through an affirmation, the sharing of a personal conviction of the truth about God. And so to finish today, what evidence is there from your own knowledge of God that can illustrate the certainty that his goodness and unfailing love pursue us? What evidence could you add from the Bible? How could you share this with those who may be questioning the certainty of God's care? How is the cross the greatest example of that pursuit? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.